Well, it's a pleasure to welcome to the podcast. It's Will Vitton, Villanova's starting goalie. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking with you.
All right, well, let's do it. To jump right in, I always like to hear the story of when you first jumped into goal. Do you remember that as a youth?
Yeah, so it was roughly like fifth grade or sixth grade, something around then. Our goalie kind of was a no-show for that day, and I just kind of decided I would step up for, I don't know why. Kind of just thought it might be fun. Ended up playing in that practice, felt pretty good about it. The next day was the tournament. Couldn't really think about, not wanted to do it because you were the guy that stepped up the day before, so you kind of had to step up the next day. And ultimately, I thought I played pretty well, and I think some of my friends thought so too, and kind of encouraged me to keep going. My mom wasn't as happy with that decision, just because she doesn't want to see her son get shelled with shots all the time. So for the next 2 years or a year, I was kind of a hybrid player. So I'd be playing midfield, and then goalie at like probably like the first or second half for a little bit. But my mom wanted me to, have those 2 years, and then if she said if you still want to play goalie after that time, then all glory to you. So that's kind of where I started. Definitely, probably I feel like it might be a similar story to other people where you kind of step up not knowing you're going to do it, and you kind of you fall in love with the position. Um, but my mom and dad like seeing me run out there because I was more of an early age. I like to run around, and I was typically a bit faster than some other people. That's a different story nowadays. So I think they got a little discouraged not seeing me being able to run around all the time. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's kind of how it started.
love it, love it. Well, you're one of the stories of team needed a goalie and I stepped up. What do you think it was about the position that you like so much?
Ooh. There's a lot of good things. I think, you know, maybe in that situation when I first stepped up, getting that, those compliments, and feeling like you almost won the game there was something that it felt good.
Mhm.
Obviously there's two ends to that stick, and you can get put with a lot of blame on that position, but at an early age, no one's really, trying to push you down. Even if I didn't play that well, my memory of the situation was that I was really good. So I think just, I don't know, being in a position to, constantly make your presence felt is something I like. Um, and I think that's kind of, to this day, kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that too. I remember when I was a midi and I'd see the goalie like make a save and everyone would be like, "Oh, way to go." And I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then they asked me to switch to goalie and I'm like, "Yeah, and then it happened to me, right? Like in my very first save, it just hit me right off the face mask and people were like, "Yeah, Damon, like
Yeah,
and you're just like, I mean, I was just there, right? I just stood there and made the save and yet everyone's got my back. So that's a real good feeling. And
exactly.
hopefully all the cross clubs around the world, that culture like continues because goalie's a tough position and like you got to give the goalies some love when they make a save.
Totally. And no
Yeah.
one no one wants to step in that position all the time. And um, I don't even know what I knew what I was stepping into at that age. Um, but it served me well, so I'm happy I made that decision. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Now, did they get you padded up at that young age, like shin guards and maybe some goalie pants, or no, just the normal stuff?
Yeah, just the normal stuff. I think my buddy, one of my best friends, is actually he played goalie and he was really good. But he didn't really like the position, so I think he lived a couple houses down next to me. So I think I borrowed some of his stuff for that game. Um, but no, they weren't putting me in any extra pads. Luckily
Okay.
at that age, I think the speed enough was probably pretty slow.
Yeah.
Um, but still, that ball does not feel good if it's coming at 2 miles per hour or 100. So
Yeah. I saw too that you mentioned you played in the field half the time, and you're also a big ice hockey guy, yeah. So what do you think? Those two elements kind of added to your lacrosse goalie game?
Yeah, I'd still say hockey's probably my favorite sport. Growing up, that was just a big thing for me. I also, uh, you know, playing in the field or being a forward was really nice just because you get scored on a ton in lacrosse. Being able to have the opportunity to have a goal yourself is a pretty good feeling. So, but in terms of qualities that kind of transferred, I'd say is ability to think quickly. It's a really
Yeah.
fast sport, and if you make a wrong decision, you're either your butt's on the ice, or probably you're giving up a pretty high scoring chance. So I'd say being able to figure things out at a fast speed is something that's very beneficial. In terms of skill wise, I'd say hand speed has been something that um, is super important as a goalie. So constantly being able to work on your stick skills ultimately transferred into know better hand speed, smoothness, and those are things that have helped me in cage for sure. Um, so I don't know, just I think playing a different sport is super beneficial in so many aspects. Even just a mental break for goalies. It's not easy to go 24/7. Being in this mental focus of trying to save the ball, it's not an easy position, and I think people need that break and have some fun. And hockey was kind of my outlet for that. And at the
Yeah.
time, I probably didn't really think about it like that, but uh, it served me so well, and still play whenever I can. So
All right.
great.
That's a good point about reading the play because hockey's, I mean, more than lacrosse, hockey's moving like
Yeah.
real fast, right? I mean, it's sliding, puck sliding, players are moving faster, and so you really have to like be able to just quickly read the play and make the right decision, and that certainly translates into lacrosse and being able to like see what the offense is doing, right, and just kind of reading the play real quick, and as a goalie, then adjusting your position and being in the right spot at the right time to maximize your chances of making a save. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I also think that ice hockey, I mean, just this like the physical act of skating is like very similar to like what we do as goalies to make saves, like pushing off that back foot and like, kind of striding at an angle
Totally.
but yeah, I mean, so I mean, I even recommend that a lot of goalies do the skaters, the on just with their feet, right? Jumping back and forth because those are the muscles that we really engage when we make saves.
Yeah. And I remember um, doing some like training stuff for hockey when I was younger. And I don't know, those slide boards.
Yeah, I do.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like the same kind of concept where you're pushing off with that back foot, and making sure when you get to the other side, your whole body's balanced. It definitely is very similar to um, the position of goalie. And even this year, we have one in our weight room, and um, I'll bring that out a couple of times because I'm not getting on the ice, so I don't have that ability to constantly do those push offs with, and it's just working different muscles. So
Mhm.
I feel like it's probably you're working it at a higher speed just because you're doing something different. Um, but yeah, I really like using that thing. So, and I probably because I just consider it a hockey move. That's why I probably like to use it. But
Yeah.
it's helped me out.
Yeah, love it. So at that young age, then how do you go about you like the position? Maybe your parents not as much, but you're enjoying the position, enjoying making saves. How do you go about then like learning how to make more saves on a consistent basis? There's some coaching going on, some camps. How did you learn the position?
Yeah, so I went through my fair share of goalie coaches, and went through definitely a good amount of goalie camps. The one I vividly remember was the Loyola goalie camp. Uh, that one was at a young age, was really fun for me. You're just kind of with, you know, it's kind of just you're being yourself out there, uh, getting some college experience shots. Uh, but I'd say I had a lot of goalie coaches, and I would pick up a thing from each one.
Mm,
I think where the reason I kept switching was because uh, I was more on the impression that it was I don't want to fully switch the way I played to accommodate a different person's perspective on the position. And that's not saying that their perspective is wrong. I've come to realize that I think this is what I teach, whenever I'm giving goalie lessons is there's certain fundamentals that you should understand, uh, whether that's your overall position in the cage, um, footwork type of thing. But if you want to play high arc, if you want to play low arc, if you want to play tall, if you want to play low, it's like if it's working for you, then I think you should stick with it. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I think the reason I ended up making more saves was because I was able to pick up different things from different guys, kind of mold it into one thing. And then I'd say just getting on the field. Uh, you know, there's no you can do as many lessons as you want, but I think getting reps is the one way you're going to get better at seeing shots and being able to judge it.
Hmm.
So I'd say being on a club team really helped me.
Yeah,
Regardless.
I want to talk about that concept that you just brought up because I believe what you said 100%. I think there's different ways to play the position. It's not a one size fits all. I mean, someone asked me, I did another podcast and someone asked me what my goalie training philosophy was. And that's kind of like my number one thing is that like, there's a lot of different ways to play this position. It's kind of like a golf swing or a baseball swing where like a lot of guys do it differently, right? And it really depends on a lot of factors. And one of them is just how you are as an athlete, right? Like a big,
Totally.
tall dude is going to play swing the bat differently than a short little quick guy. And same thing with the goalie, right?
Totally.
So yeah, I love that. I love that aspect. Do you remember specific things that like, oh, I picked this from this guy, or I learned this from this guy, and I still use that in my game today?
Ooh. I remember, even if it's just like simple drills, picking up for some guys. I like Peter Badgley. He was a Summit guy, went to Providence. Just doing like quick hands, like getting a teammate, obviously another goalie, and using your top hand and having two balls and quickly throwing at each other. Your hand speed
Mm.
gets really quick. Ultimately it's kind of you do it until someone drops it. So you try to treat it like a bit of a competition. So you're a bit more dialed in and kind of treat it like that situation. But that's just like kind of a quick thing to do, off the field. Uh, I think for me, other things I picked up was, um, I think there was like one coach I had more fundamentals on, where it was like I'm learning how to do a 5-step arc. I'm figuring out, whether or not I like to go low crease, high crease, mid crease. I ultimately kind of, shuffle in between what I like to do. At an early age, I'd say more. Right now, I'm kind of a mid guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just something I figured out. Um, I think at each guy had something different to offer, and um, I think more than anything, it was the drills that I
Yeah.
picked up from those guys that really benefited me, and
Yeah.
something I still try to use today, especially when I'm working with other young goalies.
That's a great point. It's like not only can you learn, like the technical elements of making saves of like arc play and like the stance and the save movements, but it's drills. It's also like mental game stuff, where like, oh, this is how this goalie handled giving up a goal or handled going through a slump. And I kind of learned how to get through that from this guy. And that works for me. It could be leadership. Like this is how this goalie like is a leader, and this is how this goalie
Totally.
is a leader. And I kind of pick different elements and applied that to my game. So I love
Definitely.
that. Yeah. I want to talk about your current style because it's definitely like one of the more unique setups I've ever seen. Let me share a pic so like just so we got the video, people
Okay.
can feel it. Yeah, so talk to me about the current setup. Like very wide base, right? Like hands pretty high, like stick kind of off to the side. I'd love to hear kind of how you develop this and why it works for you.
Yeah. So ultimately, I've come to a, a spot where I've had conversations where the wide base isn't always the best thing, but it's worked for me. Um, I like being in a position where I feel like I can explode low, and still get high. And when I feel like I'm in that type of squat position, Um, I feel the most explosive. I think it's more of a mental thing where, if someone says, "Oh, you should, bring your legs in a little bit." In this situation, I would say, also I like having um, sorry, this light is going crazy here.
It's all good. I saw that. That's
Um,
one of my pet peeves, man. I hate when those flickering lights get at you.
yeah, no, that was blinding me, but I like being a little jumpy a little bit, and I think I can kind of be debatable for a goalie position. I think people like to be, like calm, cool, and whatever, and I like to be a little bit excited to see the next shot. And I think adding the wide base for myself, uh, being a little like jumpy with my feet, being on the top of my toes. Ultimately, I just feel like I can get out past the pipe quicker for myself. Um,
Mhm.
or when I first got here, they had me move my stance in a little bit, play a little higher, and that was also to do to offset that you got to make sure when you're doing a wide base like this, this isn't the 100% perfect picture of you know of what I like to be, but I like how even though I'm playing a wide base, my stick's still right underneath the bar. Like
Mhm.
I like, yeah, exactly. That's like kind of my main thing. If you're playing low, you should be able to, you still feel like you're covering the rest of the net. There's different situations where, if you're playing a little bit lower and you're giving up top net and that in terms of like a baiting situation, that's a whole different story. But for me specifically, I'm not a big guy. I'm tall. I'm pretty lanky. Um, so, I honestly think this kind of gives off a bigger frame than what I actually have, which can throw the shooter off a little bit. But once again, that's not to say that this is the right right way to play the position. It's just like you said, it's really unique and something that's worked for me, and there's no point of changing it now. And that's kind of what I thought in terms of talking with guys throughout my college career, where you should bring your legs in a little bit, but uh, I did that, felt a little uncomfortable, and ultimately I think you kind of revert to um, you know, your natural habits. Hopefully those are good habits. And that's kind of why I like working with younger goalies to, get the basics down,
Mhm.
so then you can, ultimately have all of those uh, good qualities that aren't going to hinder your game. And then you can kind of mix and match it with, whatever play style you like to play with. And ultimately mine is, this wider stance, but I still feel pretty tall and big in the situation.
Yeah. The wide stance is something I've been chatting with, talking about a lot. 'Cause I get a lot of questions on it because, a lot of college guys are using it. I like it. I think though you do have to have some height. Because you're like 6 foot, right? So if you stand up, you're right at the bar, right? And you
Yeah.
see like in the wide base, it really brings you down.
Yeah.
I'm 5'8", so like if I did it, like I think I wouldn't be able to reach the top. So I
Yeah.
wasn't my style. Um,
Hmm.
but out of this stance, then is your save move? Are you stepping lateral? Is that how you make saves?
I'm trying to go a little bit, outwards and lateral. I think something you got to always do is pretend you want to meet the ball. Um, and early on in my career, I stepped forward a lot more than I do now, just because you don't have as much time to just, meet the ball in the top of the crease. So I'm definitely more of a lateral guy, but I try to, especially in warm ups and practice, get a bit of forward forwards. Um, I don't want to call it a jump, but um, you know, move laterally, but also kind of going forward at the same time.
Yeah, like kind of just like a 10-degree, 15-degree angle.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of have it right here. Although this we gotta watch that later. Okay. The other thing, the other thing I wanted to talk about is so a lot of I don't know if they're critics or skeptics, but they say, well, it opens up the 5 hole, which it does. But to me,
Yeah.
like, the beauty of the wide base stance, especially when the shooter's at like an angle, top left all the way down to the pipe, right, top right all the way down to GLE, like your feet cover pipe to pipe, right? So anything outside of your frame is off the goal,
Yeah.
is not gonna be on cage. And so my like what I say is, which would you rather save? Like a shot to your 5 hole or a shot like outside of your leg off stick low? I think that's a harder save. What do you say?
Yeah. I, I definitely, I think it changes in situations. I know for sure that kids like to, go 5 hole when they see that space, but when you're doing this stance, you also have an understanding of what you're giving up. That's not just 5 hole. It might just be different situations on pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if guys are getting closer, I'll change my stance up a little bit and play a little higher, especially if it's low pipe shots.
Right.
Um, so I kind of try to change up what exactly I'm giving. I honestly, I'd say I mean, stick side low shots and off stick low shots, I think are fun saves to save. Um, I think 5 hole was something that in my young career people were trying to expose more than other shots on the net. Um, I've been playing college lacrosse for a while now that I have a good understanding of how to play different angles, and knowing that I'm giving it up. And I'd say that I've gotten, much better at, not giving that up. Uh, I think Navy probably shot there 3 times and they didn't score.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just being able to be athletic in that stance and know what you're giving up is kind of what ultimately has helped me.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point. It's like as a lacrosse goalie, different than an ice hockey goalie or even a box lacrosse goalie who's like covering literally the entire goal almost, right?
yeah,
And like the job of the offense is to like sort of make the goalie move to expose a spot on the goal and hit that spot. Lacrosse goalies, that's not the case. Like we're giving up, I don't know, like
yeah,
60, 70% of the goal. So like you're always going to
yeah,
be giving up something. And that's a great point. It's like know what you're giving up, and so then you can, take it away or at least know that like, all right, they might try and beat me here. Not that I'm going to guess, but like just,
yeah,
know that that's the case.
exactly.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, so a lot of goalies, they have a little bit of like, angle in the shaft and in the setup. You got the straight up and down. Talk to me, almost even like a little bit rotated the other way. Talk to me about, how that came to be and like, why you like that.
I think I have more of a, my hands there are pretty far apart, and that's something that's been talked about. Whether it's bringing in, that's probably more of a wider um, grip. I
Yeah, yeah,
think,
I see that.
yeah. So I think it's kind of just honestly, I was comfortable with it at an early age, and something that I didn't really change up. I don't put tape on my stick just because, I know a lot of people like having perfect situation, like they know where their hand should be. I have tape on the top of my stick just for grip reasons, but I purposely don't have anything on the bottom just because I might change up how I hold my stick. Um, in terms of my hand, it's typically probably in the same exact area most of the times, but I kind of just um, I can be a little bit more flexible with that. For in terms of where my hands are situated, I wanted to make sure that more than anything, I do like having my stick right underneath the bar. That's kind of my one thing, and not feeling like I'm too flexed up or my hands are too far out. I like being in a comfortable spot with my arms and being able to see the ball at the same time. So that's kind of what all added together to make that specific stance.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think that's kind of it. There's, not any too much rhyme or rhythm to it. I feel comfortable with it. Some goalies like to have their hands a little bit more in front of their face, a little more, relaxed. I do have pretty long arms, so I have the ability to bring it back, pretty far left there um, and then feel comfortable and, still have that ability to, swipe underneath to my off stick right, and get there pretty quickly. So that's not been an issue for me. But yeah, I feel comfortable with it. And I think that's kind of what I like to, I kind of recurring theme for, I mean, me as a goalie and just a goalie coach is if you're comfortable with it and it works for you, then I think you should go with it.
Yeah, love it. Uh, Talk to me about this move right here. Oh, oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I like to have fun a little bit in cage, and luckily that video is showing me get it. And practice, there's definitely a couple of times where I drop it, but I like to just do that and have fun with it. Uh, if you're, it makes you feel a little more dialed in, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I was like, oh man, I got to go practice that move out there. All right, it's like stick tricks for goalies, right?
Yeah,
The other thing I was going to mention, you can kind of see it in this video. There's some other pictures of you doing it really well. Tillman Johnson calls it the big eyes, right? Like it's a
yeah.
real like focus. Like talk to me about that.
Um, I think it's like I said, I'm a big hockey guy. If you watch a lot of hockey goalies, um, Vasilevsky is probably the best in the game, at least top two.
Mm-hmm.
If you look up any pictures of him, his eyes are gonna pop out of his skull. Like, um, I think that's kind of I just feel more dialed in with that. And during practice, there might be times where I'm like, oh, I didn't see that
There we
one
go.
very well, and
There we go.
yeah, and I won't feel like I didn't see that ball very well, and then I'll kind of come to the understanding that you know um my eyes are feel a little bit more sleepy, or I'm not as locked in, and I kind of might attribute that to my vision. So you don't want to blink in cage, because if you blink, you don't have that much time. So it's kind of something that I just naturally do now. But I personally really like it. I think I see the game better. Um, I see the game kind of unfold a little bit better too, because you're not looking off to the side. You're fully focused on your job, and that's your job to save the ball. Um, so I like it.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for going through that. That was really cool. I like to get
Yeah.
the behind the scenes look. Regarding the eyes thing, yeah, it totally reminds me of the old Bears linebacker Mike Singletary, right? Like gets up to the
Mhm.
line, it's just like like got
Yeah.
the big eyes going. So, well, cool. All right. Um, Very cool. Where do we go now? Who did you grow up watching? What specific goalies? You mentioned going to that Loyola camp. Charlie Toomey, I guess he's a goalie. He was running that camp. Were there like college guys or pro guys back when you were growing up that you watched and learned from?
I think Runkel was at
Runkle,
that co
yeah, Coach
yeah,
Runk, yeah.
he was at that camp. I thought he was super cool.
I
We
still think
definitely
he's
don't
super
have
cool, by the way.
yeah, yeah, we definitely don't have, I feel like, similarities in our game, but it's kind of just, I think for me, finding guys that I thought were really, were cool. Guys that kind of dominated the sport, played really well, and that's kind of a mindset type thing. Um, I liked watching Nico Amato.
Hmm.
He was, a stud in cage from Maryland. But in terms of, I also love watching the Notre Dame goalies. Shane Doss was, um,
Mhm.
he was, he was awesome. Um, I don't really model my game off of anyone. Like I said, I kind of more of like a flexible play style. I say if I, were to pick two guys that I do like to watch was, Drew Adams. I love Drew Adams. He's all-time great. And Kyle Bernlor, I like watching his game.
The lefties.
Um, yeah, exactly. So um, those two guys are probably the top two guys on my list in terms of guys I respect, and like to try to like pick up things from them. Um, Growing up, I'd say I just liked how they kind of commanded, the game. I think modeling my game off of just confidence is kind of something I like to do, and
Hmm.
it's hard to pick that up in game film from other goalies, other than the fact that they're just, you feel like they got some swagger going,
Yeah.
especially if they're seeing the ball. Um, and then Brian Feeney, he was a Summit goalie, went to Penn. Um, So I grew up my whole life watching him play. He was '09. I'm not sure if he graduated in '09 from Summit High School. Um, he was my like he was if you can consider like an idol, that would be my guy. You know, he was a Summit lacrosse legend. Um, so and I ended up ultimately building a relationship with him. So that was probably my guy. I wouldn't say once again I don't think I necessarily picked up a ton of I didn't try to model my game after him. I think I tried to just be like him more than anything.
Hmm.
But he once again another lefty goalie. Uh, but yeah, I think those are my three guys. Where he and Brian Feeney wore number 9, so um, he's the reason I wore 9 in high school. And then also one of my older coaches, Pete Cordray, who played at Princeton, he wore 9. That's kind of my 9 origin story. Let me just throw that in there.
All right, cool. I like it. I got to add that question to the list. Why'd you pick the number that you did? That's actually a really
Yeah,
good question. I
yeah,
thought I saw a number of you with number 30 though. Is that not a thing?
yeah. That was my freshman and sophomore number.
Because that was
I
my
didn't
number.
pick
That
that
was my
number.
number. So I was actually going to
Oh,
ask you
really?
about that. No, 30 was my number. Yeah.
So yeah, they gave you a list of numbers to choose from in college when you first got there, at least for at Villanova, and um, I put 3 numbers down. Surprisingly, 30 actually wasn't that one. I wanted to do 31 because it was a family number, and
Yeah.
I had some other two funky numbers in there. So I thought they might be fun. But I ended up with 30. I don't fully know what if I had a typo or something like that, but that's that one wasn't as fun in terms of, but I was excited to have it because Christian Cuccinella had it right before me. Another guy I consider in Villanova, great. So you it felt good to be in strong number,
There you
if
go.
and that's one way to put it.
Yeah, I love it. Talk to me about your recruiting process. I'd love to hear kind of the story of how that went down, and what was it specifically about Villanova that you really loved.
Yeah, so I'd say, obviously it's a different age, different time right now in the recruiting process. Um, I was getting recruited in, you know, 8th grade, like most of the kids in my class, which you don't know what you're doing. I think I based my college career choices off school colors more than, academics or what I wanted. And that's something that, my dad was really good at, teaching me and telling me that you can't just, talk to a coach and, you know, be like, oh, that's sweet. I want to do that. But in terms of, getting those connections and ultimately getting to talk to those coaches I attribute my success a lot to my club team. Chris Roy at Leading Edge was awesome. He's um, you know some of the tournaments that they put you in front of. I think there was times where I would do like 12, 13 tournaments a summer, and I was like, I can't do this if I want to still be, well, if I still want to love the sport. Um,
Hmm.
I couldn't do that, and ultimately the next summer I was like, I can't, like, because I was doing Leading Edge and I was doing Summit Futures because I wanted to, you know, play with my high school club team and be in front of my head coach because I wanted to get some good um, time in front of him. And then you're doing your other things where it might be showcases. So add all those up. I'm playing 13 tournaments, and it's not easy you're not going to cut out the high school one because for at Summit
High
it's kind
school.
of almost a non-negotiable.
Right.
If and then you look at club and you're going to 7 tournaments and 4 of them are really really good, and then 3 of them are more, it seems like more of a, unfortunately for in terms of the way I look at it, more of like a money grab.
Yeah.
So I thought, I didn't really want to, and who are you to, like, make that call as as a young high school kid. So it's difficult. I think sometimes you might have to suck it up and go to all those tournaments to get to the good ones. Um, I think Leading Edge got really good at picking what tournaments to go to, what tournaments not to go to. They kind of understood that, towards the end of the year, kids didn't want to be there because for me, I was hurt after I missed the Under Armour um, underclass games because I got hurt in a tournament before, and I was the whole summer I was looking forward to that one, and I
Oh
couldn't do
no.
it. So
Yeah.
I kind of fully changed my perspective on the tournament life and going to ones that were going to be beneficial for you. Um, so I guess advice for young goalies is finding a spot that you know best fits you, best fits your time schedule. Because
Yeah.
if you're doing something too much and you're losing a love for it, then it's not worth it. And then trying to get in front of there's different levels to the recruiting process, and uh, I'd say talking to Coach Jim Davidson at Summit, he introduced me to a couple guys. Then going to my club and talking to Chris Roy, and he has this like connection, which is just absurd. Like finding a specific guy that can kind of be a mentor, and ultimately that's probably your coach as well, was something that was super super beneficial for me. Um, and it was a great position for me. And I honestly I stepped out on a bit of a ledge because um, Corey McManus and myself we're both Summit guys, both went to Villanova. Um, at Summit, it's more of a you do Summit Futures, um, you play with your high school team, and then that's kind of it. Playing for a club team was not, when at least I was growing up, wasn't as big of a thing, and it was kind of almost seemed like it was a bit discouraged just because you didn't want to be missing um, tournaments to be playing at the club team. And Corey ended up doing Leading Edge, and I think kind of from it seemed like he kind of put himself out there, and I kind of followed him right after, and I was definitely a bit nervous making that decision, and I looking back on it, I'd make that decision 10 times out of 10.
Mm.
So I think just being comfortable in making hard decisions, especially if it's going to benefit getting in front of other coaches, is something that young goalies should do.
Yeah. I couple comments on that. So I have a Facebook group that's filled with like tons of parents, and I love it because like they have they're like a resource that I don't have. Like I don't know every single club program and every single showcase and every single thing, and everyone asks me that, right? Because
Yeah,
like I'm a good goalie resource, and I'm like, go ask that in the Facebook group. And a lot of times parents will say, yeah, like, oh, that showcase, money grab, like horrible
hmm,
event, like $500 down the
yeah,
drain, right? So I think
totally.
that doing that research of what tournaments and what showcases and that you're going to go to is something that you can do real easy. So that's first comment I want to make. Second is a question to you. What do you think is the sweet spot for tournaments for an eighth grader or that age? Because you said I did 14 tournaments, and that's literally every single weekend, right? You're
Yeah,
you're playing 4 games a day. What do you
yeah.
think is the sweet spot? Because I do think you need some rest. You need a break every once in a while.
I'd say like 7 to 8. I think
Yeah.
you want those reps. And you might have a tournament that's not your best, and you don't want to just be relying on one tournament to be a stud that day.
Right.
Uh, I think you want some more versatility, and you also want to play different teams, so you can't just expect to play every team in one tournament. Um, different coaches are going to want to go see West Coast kids on one weekend, and they're going to want to see a bunch of Maryland kids on one other weekend. So I'd say finding a nice balance of not sticking in one geographical location is probably the biggest thing. Having a team that travels, if you travel well, typically other coaches would too. Um, have another light issue here, but so
So yeah,
yeah, I
eight
think
tournaments, eight
it's
tournaments, eight tournaments. I love it. Yeah, and then like you said,
yeah,
you're always not going to play well. Different coaches might be at different events. but yeah, I mean, playing every single weekend is a recipe for burnout, and you're not going to love the game, right? You're going to get
Yeah,
hurt.
exactly.
You're going to get hurt, even overworked, or just lacrosse
Totally.
goalies take a thumping on the shins,
Yeah.
thighs, bruises, right? Cool. So what was it for you about Villanova? It was the colors. You got that. You got that. You got that light blue and the dark blue. It's nice colors, huh?
Yeah. It worked out. The colors ended up, just being an added package to it. But for Villanova, there was a lot of things. It's an hour, 45 minutes away from my house. I have enough distance to get away, but at the same time, I got, my parents are at every game with ease. It's nice. A lot of familiar faces. New Jersey is, especially Summit, um, and Del Barden's close to Summit. It's a hot it's a hot spot to produce Villanova kids.
Mhm.
So I remember going on my visit, uh, and just you're walking around campus and you're seeing so many people. Um, I think the transition for me was really really easy. Uh, there's definitely some it's not going to be a super smooth, but it made sense for me. And then talking with different coaches, Coach Corrado is one of the best in the business. He's the most personal guy. Um, he's you know he's just a great guy. There's no other way to put it, and that goes with all of our other coaches. Um, Coach Connor is great. Coach Miller, our defensive coordinator, he wasn't in the recruiting process when I was there, but been fortunate enough to freshman year he was there, and uh, he's awesome. And then um, Coach Karpinski, who is the goalie coach. Wow, he's now at Drexel. Just having those guys reach out to you and uh, making an effort to make you feel wanted was something that was really nice for me too. I think that goes a long way, and Villanova just felt right. Wow, I think that's the best way to put it for me. There's other schools I went to, and you get different feelings, you get different perspectives on what your situation might be there. Um, And like you look at a school like Syracuse when I was growing up, there was 10 goalies there. I was like, I don't, it was probably like 6 or 8, but still, like, I like to be in a situation where um, you feel like you can compete, and if you work hard and you ultimately, say that you show that you're, the best at that position, that you'll get playing time, and that's not a who knows. I could have easily done that somewhere else too, but. Uh, I think just overall grand scheme of things, Villanova was just it felt right for me as a person.
Yeah, love it. Well, you're back for your fifth year, fifth and final. We got more in the tank.
Now fifth and final.
Okay, all right. Well, let's do it.
Yeah,
Well, we're recording this on March 23rd. You guys are rolling 7-1 wins over Penn State, Delaware, Penn. Like I said, you just beat Navy. Way to go, man. Way to go. Keep it up. Keep it
yeah.
up. Let's go.
Thank you.
Talk to me about, if you could, just what does a week of practice look for you guys at kind of like a I don't know, high level.
Um, it's pretty similar. I mean, we got days where, after a game we'll typically have some sort of rest period. Um, like after a Navy, they let us take the next day to, relax, get off our feet. Um, but typically it's a rest day, to a more of a workout day and watching film to the next. Trying to flush your body, make yourself feel good. Our strength coach Sean Doherty is the best. Um, he knows how our guys are feeling all the time. And then I'd say just going into practice, it's you go through similar things. It's more of uh, I'd say you kind of feel like you pick the stick up again. You try to move around. Nothing too crazy. Get some team drills going, whether it's just box drill, something quick and easy. And then later in the week, you're doing more stuff that's you're not doing super high competition. You're not doing like box drill. You're not doing PB drills, GB build up into shots. You're doing more team O, team D stuff where you're walking through sets, you're
Hmm.
figuring out the team's tendencies, what they're running, uh, and then you also have a more focus on specifics in film. We're watching film throughout the week, but uh, I'd say it's more of a there's certain days have certain specifics, whether you're watching EMO, 6v6, personnel. Um, so I've gone into a routine where you go like, I know what I'm gonna get today, which is really nice. The practice plan hasn't even come out yet, so um, that's probably all. I'm also a fifth year. I've been here for a while, so I'm happy
Yeah,
that
right.
I know what's going on. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah,
I was going to ask you, how much do you rely on film? So you guys are playing Brown on Monday, right? Like, is it like, are you just watching their sets? Like, you know what they like to run and 6v6 and man up? Or do you
yeah,
like at that, are you like at the point of film where you're like 27 likes to shoot like this? Like how into it do you get?
yeah. We do sets to start with. We do all their sets to figure out, they're gonna throw stuff differently at us, and we know that. And then we have a focus on, tendencies. And I don't rely on that, but it's nice to see what guys do because, you're not gonna the goalie, you're not gonna guess ever. But if you're watching, um, and it's good for the defense too, because you watch a guy like, I guess you could say, like Sam Hanley, and like that he's going to try to bully dodge you, and he's going to get his, and he's a great player. But there's certain ways that he's had some errors in his game, and that's because he's holding ball all the time, and that's what great players do. But
Yeah.
there's there's other ways to combat some of his really good plays, and I guess watching film is, especially if you can talk to your defenders and be like, hey, like his shot's not as great when he's doing this, or
Yeah, right.
he's not going to shoot if he's doing this. So kind of being on the same level as a defense is, that's kind of how I feel most comfortable. If you can talk to your guys and put other teams in situations they don't want to be in. But
Right.
um yeah, I like watching personnel, but I don't, once again, I don't try to overthink it too much.
Yeah, I love it. That's a really good point about like if you see something when you're watching the tape of like, maybe he's a lefty and like when he's shooting down the right alley, like he's only setting up his left, right? He's only setting up his
Yeah,
left. And you're like, all right, hey, tell your defender, like, hey, when he does that, like, don't bite, right? Because he's
yeah,
always just trying to get back to his left. Um,
exactly.
I'm speaking very specifically of a teammate that I have that I think took like one righty shot in the entire 4 years of his
Yeah.
college career, and he'd only drive right to set up
Mhm.
his left. And I'm like, man, the scouting report ever got out on this guy? Like, they could shut him down so
Yeah,
easily.
exactly. There's a lot of guys like that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, well, cool. Thanks, Will, for coming on the show. Let's talk real quick about the mental game, if we could. Huge element
Hmm.
of being a great goalie. What are some mental lessons that you've learned along the way that you think really help you in goal?
I like doing, eye stuff before the game. I like, working with watching, like I like doing wall ball with my hands, watching the ball into, off the wall into my hand. Um, trying to process stuff pretty slowly. Trying to slow down the game. Um, Thinking about shots, thinking about situations, before the game as well is something that's helped me a lot. And just, not getting too down on yourself ever. I think the position is you're going to get scored on, um, and that's the nature of the game. So it's you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Um, and I'd say just being able to reset yourself. There's certain ways to stay locked in a game, and I think finding what that is for you is really important. I've come to understand myself where I like to stay a little bit up. I like to, keep loose, um, feel a little bit, I'm not sure what the right word would be, but almost like a nice, like whenever you get like the chills, like I kind of like that. Like whenever I get like the chills going and I can keep it at a maintain a, like a low level,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm the most ready. And when I feel that, it kind of reassures in my brain where I'm like, okay, like I'm dialed, like I'm ready to go. Um, so I think just figuring out what that is for you. Some goalies like might like to play more calm, but for me, um, I think I just once again I think it's changed throughout my college career a little bit, but once you figure out what's working for you for that season, um, I would write it down. Um, and you might have an off season and you come back and you're like, oh, what was I doing that so differently? You might try to watch film and you see like, oh, I'm doing this position. I'm in the same position as I was last time, but I'm not making the saves I was making last year. And I think that comes down to a mental thing and being able to look on your phone, look at your notes, and be like, all right, like I was in this exact position, writing this down when I was making these saves. So if you
Yeah.
can kind of get back into that mindset, it really helps me. So I think it'd probably help other people as well.
All right, so much good stuff there. So much good stuff. So the hand eye at the beginning, just helps you get locked in, not only like, with your vision, which is more of a, physical thing, but it's just mentally, right? Like I'm just seeing the ball and getting in the
Totally.
right mindset. That was cool. Um, what else did you say? Yeah, so I 100% agree too, because there's a lot of goalies that come on and they're like, I'm an even keel guy. I'm an even keel guy. Like something great happens, something bad happens, right? And that to me was not me. Was not me.
Mhm.
Something great happens, like I feed off that energy. I go for it.
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean? Because I knew that doing that would not make me go lower when something bad happened. So yeah, I think there's but if you're an even keel guy, great. That works
Yeah,
for you, great. Do it.
exactly.
Love that.
But yeah, that was not me.
Yeah,
I
cool.
I definitely feed off energy, but I don't. You don't want to don't get too high and don't get too low. So whenever you're gonna get scored on, I think it's those are the type of things you move on to the next one. And um, I think also once again the hockey thing, I like to throw the get a water bottle, throw a squirt of water up in the air, and follow one water droplet down, and that's like a Braden Holtby thing. Every time after he got scored on in hockey, he would do that. Um, that's something I like to do, and I don't do it necessarily after every time I get scored on, but it's another way I like to get mentally focused. Might look a little silly in cage, but whatever works for you works for you.
I love that. Who was it? Brayton Holtby.
Yeah, for
All
the
right.
Washington Capitals.
Yeah, I'll have to look this guy's. Oh, little mountain man. Got a nice
Yeah,
beard going there, huh? All right.
yeah,
All right. I'll check that out. That's
exactly.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Squirt up one, watch it fall down. Love it.
yeah.
Well, Will, thank you so much for coming on. I typically ask about the stick setup, but we saw you got the STX Eclipse 2 going on. Do you string your own heads or you got someone do it?
Luckily Tucker Goodell on our team he's my guy. So I wouldn't. I don't know what I would do without him. And I struggled. I struggled to find a stick. I went through so many trying to find the right setup. I think I had that set up junior year, and I finally found out that that's what I liked. I moved, so uh,
In
that was
terms of
tough.
heads or like just the stringing and the mesh and the
Just the
pocket and
stringings,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the head stayed the same, um, but everything else changed. The shaft even changed when I was younger, but that was something that probably lasted for 2 weeks, and I went back to the attack shaft. But
Yeah.
I struggled throwing the ball a little bit when I was younger and not making accurate passes, and um, so finding that right stick was huge for me, and I cycled through them. I tried to find what worked for me, and I at one point I thought it may be me, but I found a stick that worked for me, and I'm not changing it, and hopefully Tucker is close by whenever I need him.
There you go. When the new STX Eclipse comes out, are you going to switch or you going to stay with what you got?
I'll say what I got for now, but
Yeah,
I was a original Eclipse guy before, so
same here.
I'm not too fussed with if it's the same type of stick. I'm not going to go to completely change it up, but if it's just increase support in terms of if it's going to help me save the ball, then yeah, I'm taking it.
All right. Well, good luck in the rest of the season, my man. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experience and a bunch of tips along the way. If you had to leave the goalies with a final piece of advice, what would that be?
I would just say just have fun. You're not gonna don't overthink everything. Don't worry about um, the stuff you can't control. I'd say just worry about yourself, um, and have fun with it. You're not gonna like going to college if you play in the position if you made it not so fun growing up. So I'd just say stay loose, find out what works best for you, and the rest will take care of it will take care of itself.
Have fun and work on the behind the back catching of the rebounds.
Yeah, exactly. That's a necessary trait.
Necessary. Will, go get him, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Damon. I appreciate it.